Hey, WokeNFree Nation, Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice.
For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. Stop scrolling, start listening.
You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science to Bitcoin, or even one of your favorite celebrities. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud.
And they have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. Our podcast, WokeNFree, is there too.
Now let's get into the episode. Hi, it's Natasha.
And Khalil.
And we are the co-hosts of
WokeNFree.
Thank you for tuning in to our 270th episode of WokeNFree. If you've been tuning in every week for WokeNFree Wednesday, you know that WokeNFree is all about being real and honest with each other and you. We talk about everything and anything important to us, you, the world, and nothing is off the table. This week, we're asking the question, what's causing current inflation? But before we dive deep into this very interesting and very important topic, a couple of things to cover. Have you gone to WokeNFree.com not only to listen to this episode, but to download it through the Podbean app? If you haven't, please do so immediately. If you download it through the app, then you can put in your comments and you can tell us how current inflation is affecting you. So many across the United States have really felt this and are, there's folks that are really struggling. So would love to hear your stories and would love to hear what you think about what's going on. Now, if you listen to podcasts on a device which you can't download new apps like the Podbean app, then what we ask is go to WokeNFree.com, go in the Listen tab, and then pick your platform of choice where you're going to follow and subscribe to the show at. So we're on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora. It's a WokeNFree world. So many different places to follow and subscribe to, so make sure you do that so you still can show your support there. Now, when it comes to WokeNFree.com, also if you can, at the top of the page, click subscribe to follow the show through the Podbean app. And on social, you can always holler and find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn at WokeNFree. And if you have 90 seconds, which, of course you do, it's very presumptive, but I'll go with it for now. Make sure you go to WokeNFree.com, go in the Listen tab, and then pick your platform of choice where you're going to review the show at, and tell us how the show is feeding into you, your life, and your thoughts.
Yeah, you could be going into a dead zone, so that could catch you.
That's for the internet. Really random.
I was just thinking about how you could not have 90 seconds if you're going into a dead zone with no internet or anything.
And does that dead zone last for eternity?
A submarine, you might be in there for months.
So, unless it's eternity, eventually they'll get back to the internet, right?
Eventually you will,
So when you get internet, that's when you can proceed.
Oh, okay. So, as long as you get your internet back, that kind of thing.
And you're alive. The only thing that's final in life is death. So
you have to be alive to review our show too? Is that a requirement?
I'm not quite sure. We'd have to speak to the other side. Because
I wouldn't want to put those barriers in place. I want everybody to have a chance to review.
If ghosts are listening currently right now, you are welcome to review the show as well.
Okay, good.
Please identify yourself as a ghost, though, so that we have that understanding.
So put it in parentheses or something. Yep. Ghost.
Just so we know.
So we know. Okay, that was a ghost that commented.
Exactly.
Nice. All right. At least they have the opportunity, and they also get the opportunity to know a little bit more about ourselves, right?
Exactly.
This week we're asking, serialistly, do you prefer O-shapes or flakes for your cereal bowl?
That's an interestingly random, pointless question.
You've never thought of that, though, right?
So,
That's what's
a preference,
so
yeah, it's pointless. So for me,
pointless for this, okay.
Yes, of course,
of course.
But I would say try better. I would say it's going to depend on my mood. So if I'm feeling nostalgic, then I would go for the O shape because it reminds me of, kind of Apple Jacks or Cheerios, right? Like things I used to, that kids eat typically. But then if I'm feeling more like my adult self, which I hopefully should feel like most of the days, then I would say Flakes cut it fine, and Raisin Bran comes to mind, and what's the other one? The Special K that I
Frosted
like.
Flakes.
Frosted Flakes, yep, things like that. It works, so it just depends on my mood. I would say right now I feel mostly adulty, so I would prefer Flakes.
Oh wow, you actually prefer the Flakes?
Only because
Crazy.
I'm in a more adult mood, just because I'm dealing with adult stuff.
I find I'm thinking about it is that the Flakes, I feel like the Flakes, if you leave it in the cereal too long, it gets soggy faster than the O. And when Flakes are soggy, I mean, I could hardly eat it. Like, it's a punishment. It's just like I feel like I'm being punished. Yeah. Compared to the O's, I mean, it gets softer, but it's not as terrible.
Yeah, it retains a little bit more shape.
Yeah. So the reason I choose O's is not really because of that, but it's because Oreo O's are my favorite cereal. Like even though Oreos are that's not my favorite dessert, but the cereal is, I don't know, I still haven't, for chocolate cereals, I haven't found anything that surpasses it yet. It's hard to find.
Did you like that Cinnabon cereal that we had?
But I love that too, yeah. I love that, but I'm saying there's no chocolate cereal that surpasses Oreos. Okay. So, I mean, I can't say if isn't my number one? I mean, it's close. It's number one or number two. It's definitely there. It's close, though. It's my favorite chocolate cereal, no matter what.
These are the ways that people can get to your heart. Good to know.
Yeah, I used to see. Now, look, the listeners have learned so much from what you just revealed about yourself and what I revealed about me.
Pure pointless noise.
How's it pointless when you said what they can do now just from learning about this?
And you're so excited that people can woo you with cereal?
No, I'm not excited, but I'm excited to open part of my heart up.
To strangers?
It's giving them a chance to know how to get into my heart. That's
one word. Shameful. Get your life together. Well, get it together.
I mean, but you know what I find shameful? You should really know. I find it shameful that some of the prices of these cereals are going up. You got to get the store brand.
I would if I didn't want to tickle you.
Now you are supposed to get the store brand because of this inflation. That's
first of all,
that's how you have to get your cereals.
People can get whatever brands that they feel they need to get for their household.
They can get any brand, but if they get some of those big brands, them boxes look a lot smaller than the store-bought brands.
Well, shrinkflation is a different conversation.
But that's something to think about, though. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should actually ask what's causing current inflation.
You're a hot mess.
That's a great question.
CNBC says the following. In order to measure inflation, economists use a price index to look at price changes across a number of different goods and services. Though there are many different indices, indices, I don't know how you can say the indices.
Said it right.
The Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers, or CPIU, is one of the most popular measuring price changes within a theoretical basket of goods and services for urban consumers, including food, apparel, automobiles, among other categories. And the Federal Reserve uses a different price index to measure inflation, the Personal Consumption Expenditures, or PCE index, which similarly measures price changes amongst goods and services. And lastly, the core inflation rate refers to an index that excludes volatile spending categories such as food and energy, and can be a useful index for economists since food and energy prices can fluctuate significantly. The current high inflation rate can be attributed to many different factors, many of which are a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, no surprise there, gaping pins, rising prices on three general causes: increase in the household demand and supply chain shortages due to the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and then the presence of a strong labor market. Generally, the story goes something like this. At the start of the pandemic, consumers began spending less because of lockdowns and in turn started saving more. Then when COVID-19 restrictions eased, people started spending more again. Companies, however, couldn't keep up with this increased consumer demand, and many of them had reduced production because of the pandemic and experienced shipping delays, as well as shortages in labor and key inputs. The result of all these things, higher prices for most goods and services. And then while prices increases were seen across multiple categories in June, some of the largest price hikes occurred in gasoline, shelter, and food. The year-over-year increase in food prices was 10.4%, while for shelter it was 5.6%, and energy 41.6%.
Yikes.
Yep. Shelter, food, and energy are also the major categories that make up the Consumer Price Index, accounting for nearly 50% of the entire index. So it goes on and on to share some more details, but I thought that information, that part right there was pretty much addressing kind of what's
all right.
going
That's
on.
that's how inflation works. It's definitely good. Like you basically define how inflation works. And now the thing that I found interesting though is that it's actually being attributed to something different. So 12 News, they verified a recent claim that on average 11.4% of inflationary price increases became corporate profits from 1979 to 2019.
Interesting.
But since the 2020 pandemic, that number has jumped to 53.9%. So inflation, the prices being inflated are actually 54% of that is attributed to profits from corporations since 2020.
Since 2020.
It used to be like when you had inflation,
even
a company's profit was only 11.4%.
Through the pandemic, they're saying that companies just hiked up prices to keep
their profits.
Their profit margins. Interesting.
So over half of price increases. Over half of the price increases that we're seeing on all these products and services, it just goes to the profits of the larger companies.
And you think that that's the...
And services is like food, furniture, and cars.
Argument over like some of the things like the Ukraine
that other stuff is kind of just...
COVID pandemic, the shortage, the delays,
those
demand issues...
But all I'm saying, I'm just talking about the price increases actually themselves. Like, where's that? What's happening with that money? It's kind of like, let's say we had bread and bread was $1 before 2020. It's not, not even close, right? Not, But now let's say it's $2. If so, that $2 increase, if you break it up,
dollar increase,
that dollar increase, 54 cents of that is going just to profits.
Profit.
So it didn't have to be $2. It could have been $1 something 50 or $1 whatever.
I would suggest that I think it's actually 46. A combination of everything. So,
but look,
that's interesting though.
But I mean, so technically that's only 54%. You still got the 46%, right?
Yeah, contributed.
So that 46% is everything else.
The things I mentioned.
They are in play, but that's kind of messed up that your corporate profit. It jumped so much. It used to only be the 11 point. Why did it have to go up so much? Why didn't it just stay stationary at 11.4%? Why did they increase it more?
And this is across all U.S. corporations?
Not all, but for large companies. So maybe small businesses didn't participate in this price hike the same way.
A lot of small businesses went under during the pandemic.
Yeah, so some of them didn't do it. Yeah,
interesting.
But I just think that's very interesting because what we like to hear too during inflation, what a lot of people try to say is that if we increase wages, this is going to be what's causing your food to cost more, your goods, your gas to cost more, all that stuff. And it's really not that. And Biden did actually mention this for gas.
If they're
it's a
trying
small
to
percentage.
Keep their profit at a certain point, then they would argue that would be an issue because if they still want to make 50%.
But no, that's
profit,
not but that's an artificial thing. They're just deciding they want that number. Yeah. It's kind of like they can go back to the 11.4% they've always been making, but instead it's like they're going to always want to increase their margins. But why did that jump so much though? So that's the question there. Why did it go from just 11.4%? They say, you know what? Let's just make it whatever.
It's supply and demand, right? If you can charge it and people are willing to pay it, then
I think that's why it is. Yeah, they said we can get it, so let's just do it.
More money, and then companies also are taking on more costs for things, right? And being sued more, and so things have gotten more expensive from 1979.
And you know what? I'll bring up. Actually, I got to bring this up too because there's a piece of software. I don't know the exact name. I mean, we can include it in a link if we want to, but so there's this software that landlords that have been using, and it actually is like a form of price fixing where it tells you what you should set your rent price to.
Oh, well, I mean, since you mentioned it, you're gonna have to share that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty. I've never heard of it. There was a news. No, that's really bad because what it does is it'll raise the rent so that you might lose your tenants, and it might price people out of the market, but it knows that enough you'll get somebody else that'll eventually pay for it.
That's a shame.
So it's a really messed up thing.
I think over the summer I saw the average price to live in, I forget if it was a 2-bedroom in New York City. It was like something like thousands of dollars. And I just thought, wow, that's really interesting. But again, if someone's willing to pay for this, then...
But it's at the expense of somebody might have been living there 30 years, right? Or whatever.
That part.
For so long. And now they get kicked out because somebody said, I need to make my profit margins even larger this year, even though... the economy's not doing so well. And what do you think people's biggest concern with current inflation is?
So I think the biggest concern is going to be kind of like what you spoke to. The average American, unless you are continuing to make more money on an annual basis, then if your costs of living continue to go up, then you potentially get in a situation where you might not be able to afford the same lifestyle for yourself on an annual basis, because depending upon how much inflation is hitting your home and your bank account, then you might either have to start saving more, you might have to potentially change where you live, you might have to go without certain items that you wouldn't necessarily call as luxury, but just out of an affordability perspective. It's going to change how you orient in life, and for some people, it might actually put them on the street, because there's just but so much that your bank account can bear. If it might increase people now, more now than ever, people are starting side businesses, and now it might not be a luxury to start a side business. It might have to be a necessity.
Wow.
Because if your costs are eating up more than 50% of your income, you are at grave risk of not having enough money to cover all your bills. So, yeah.
One issue is you got to worry about is that it's possible that things become hyperinflated. And if that happens, the economy could actually collapse because people...
Explain what hyperinflated means.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to let people know what that is. But it was like, or actually, I don't know if you mentioned it, but if it does happen, people wouldn't be able to afford just the regular goods. I guess you were saying they can be put out on the street. So, yeah, that's the most extreme. But not being able to afford food is pretty bad as well. Oh, so Investopedia, they explain that hyperinflation is rapidly rising inflation, typically measuring more than 50% per month. Oh, wow. And although hyperinflation, it's rare for it to happen in developed economies such as us, it has occurred many times throughout history in countries like China, Germany, Russia, Hungary, and Georgia. Wow. So those countries have had issues with hyperinflation.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, if US gets to that, I don't know what people would do.
Obviously the government would have to step in, and they'd have to make sure that people could eat, and at the bare minimum, right? And that also not everyone can be homeless. So there would have to be some type of regulation at a federal level for housing and food costs. And I would
just to cap the cost.
Yeah, or I don't know if you have to ration food, or I don't know what the situation is.
They did that in Russia. I know they were doing rationing and.
Yeah, but you have to ensure that people don't just starve to death. So there would have to be some type of interaction or
something would
interplay
happen.
there.
But it would. I don't think the government could just step in and start writing stimulus checks again. Because then inflation would increase.
We could print monopoly money as much as we want.
Because then bread would be $5,000.
Sure.
And everybody would be millionaires.
Excellent, yeah.
And then there'd be trillionaires.
And gazillionaires and billionaires. Yeah. Wonderful. We could just play these weird games.
We take the first trillion. Oh, yeah, you're right. Then we'll have even more. Yeah, you can go to the next step.
Yeah, just have a bunch of crazy numbers out here.
But you know what's crazy?
$10 million billion.
The government did, I don't know how much it was, but I think they added $50 billion or something just out of nowhere into the
treasury.
The treasury. I think they just made a new accounting and just said we're going to inject this $50 million into it for people. I think it's for big banks though, not for us, but for banks.
Good Lord.
They just injected money into the economy, but not that we will actually see it. The big banks get it, and they just have this magical money that doesn't exist.
It's all magical.
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from. They're just saying, hey, you know what? Here's some money.
The goal is we all have to just become better wizards, guys.
But we all have magic, but we're not allowed to use our magic. It's called printers. No, we can print too.
I was thinking more along the lines of Harry Potter.
But you want to use ancient magic.
Ancient magic?
Yeah, you want to take it back to those times where.
I think you're confused between reality and fantasy.
Some people say that's from reality of yesteryear.
Yesteryear?
Yes.
Hocus pocus.
A long, long time ago. That's how those stories begin, They try to claim that that's what had happened before the modern age. Before this modern era was magic.
I wish people could see you right now. It don't even make sense.
But you found out how we could solve inflation. Just go back to the
magic years.
Yeah, go back to years of yore. Go back to those things.
Does that also include when Frodo and Bilbo were journeying?
I thought you were going to say something else. And I was going to say, this is not appropriate for this show. I thought you were going to say something completely different. And I said, oh no. They ruined that too, man. Because people do some crazy stuff with the characters.
I'm so beyond.
I mean, but you said something okay. So I just thought you were going to say something else. And I was feeling really sad for a moment.
And you suggested I...
it was close though. It was a close call. I don't know. Could have been a Freudian slip. We don't know.
I think you had the slip, and so now with that, my question to you is: how can the average person deal with what's going on with current inflation?
Nah, I have a couple of things. You might be mad at the first one though. I know you got upset with me, but for food, buy the store brand because it's cheaper.
So the proper response is buy the bargain deal for whatever the food category is.
I know. I've looked. It's at
typically
least anecdotal and evidence shows that the store brand is always cheaper,
and it doesn't mean it's worse.
No, it doesn't. That's what's great. I'm not saying store brand
because how you're saying it, you're implying that it's like.
No, I'm not trying to imply that. I'm just implying
dust the dust off.
I'm just implying no, because what happens is you put the store brand in your shopping cart, and your children are going to throw you a lot of shade. They will. They said that is, I don't know what you put in that cart.
Because people are under this perception that that's not good enough. And what I'm saying is,
kids will be
buy
mad.
The bargain. Yeah, well, they can think whatever they want. Are you paying bills here?
I know.
Like, until you pay the bill, you can't say anything.
But they don't have to say anything, but they will throw you lots of shade.
Good, and they can live in the street.
Just for throwing you shade now?
What I'm saying is that people need to learn to be respectful.
That's interesting. Can a child be disrespectful by throwing shade at their parents?
Yes, you don't pay bills. Are you crazy?
Oh wow! So you don't even have the right to throw shade, because
you have the right to do everything, but you don't have the right to. You don't have the right to live here. This
oh
is my
wow!
choice.
All right, I didn't know that could be seen as like an offense.
And well, in my household, that would constitute an opportunity for physical violence.
Because I mean, some people just make the looks by mistake.
Well, maybe they should close their eyes and wait until they can get their face together.
See how unreasonable that is? You don't even know if they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah,
it might have been a mistake.
Together. Get your life together a little bit.
See, that's all right. That's something else.
Control your face.
Okay. The next thing that an average person can do is, for gas, they could just try to drive less. They can get a unicycle.
You don't even take them seriously at all.
Stop on. No, but I'm telling you, there's alternate forms of transportation. Yeah, alternate forms of transportation.
And alternate universes to live in.
And watch this too. We just saw this. We see this sometimes.
The metaverse.
No, I mean, travel in the metaverse where you don't even have to travel. You travel using electrons. I mean, yeah, you can do that. But let's be real. Not all jobs can be done through the metaverse.
I'm so tired.
That's not a real option. Unicycle is a real alternative method of transportation.
Unicycle.
Yes, hoverboard. We saw that the other day.
The ones where your feet blow up.
No, they're only banned in certain cities, so you can get. Oh yeah, well make sure. All right, so with the unicycle,
why not
that's
just
not
a scooter
banned.
then?
You can get a scooter, but then there's a licensing
bicycle.
issue. You can get a bicycle, but then what if you get a flat tire or something? The unicycle's only one tire, so you can take care of that. And you can wear a spare tire on your back too if you need it, or get the repair kit.
Is this advice you would take? Oh, God.
No, I mean, all right. So
you're not going to wear the wheel on your back?
No, of course not. I might try the hoverboard though. That seems fun.
Fun, yeah.
That's alternative mode. And guess what? This might be horrific to some.
Walking.
So you can be in a pool of sweat when you get to your destination.
It sounds like an exercise of choice, but yes.
I mean, you might have to walk through some interesting areas and interesting landscaping. But guess what? Here's a good one. You should be okay with it. Subway.
If they exist in the city.
If they don't, you can start digging.
You're listening to
WokeNFree.
WokeNFree. WokeNFree.
WokeNFree.
Podcast that keeps it real and honest. Let's do it.
Okay, that's illegal.
Oh, okay, don't dig. Yeah, you might hit a gas line or something and you're going to get in real trouble. All right, instead of trying to build your own subway, guess what you could do? Take the bus. Now, what are you going to say about that?
I have nothing to say about this.
Exactly.
I'm waiting for you to complete your nonsense.
That's a nonsense. I'm teaching people how they can save gas money. Just take the bus. Get on the bus, wait your time.
Get a remote job. How about them apples?
I know, I was thinking that too. That's too extreme. Mine is not as extreme. You just got to stop 3 hours earlier because if your bus schedule is not great, you just, you got to go into their schedule. Oh, and what I should have said too, I forgot. If you're doing the bus, you could also carpool. So that's a good alternative for working and stuff, or even just getting clothes and things. Carpool and say, hey, we're all going to go to our local thrift shop and buy stuff. And that would take me to my next point for clothes. Thrifting is your friend.
Well, I am a fan of thrifting.
And I think more people should do it. It's good for the environment. There's no problems with that.
Here in
Arizona,
that. Mondays, it's 50% off the entire store, and literally all of Arizona shows up. So,
and you can do it. You can get your cosplay costumes too.
Yes, you can get your
because you can put it together.
Costumes together.
Not Halloween. If you're a cosplayer, you dress up all year long.
Because that's of grave importance in relation to this episode.
Hey, some people get really paid for it. But I'm just saying, you can do that.
Get really paid for it.
Yeah, they get paid, or they get paid for it well.
Over it, you mean?
No, they get paid for being cosplayers. I'm saying.
Oh.
I guess from advertisement and sponsorships.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying, don't knock. I don't know if you're trying to knock cosplayers, like saying it's weird to dress up all year long.
I'm not saying anything.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
You're saying a whole bunch of.
No, I wasn't sure. Okay, so there was no. All right, no misunderstanding here. We love cosplayers.
I'm not.
We're not saying all that.
That bad.
Okay, cosplayers exist.
I'm saying that you need to do what you need to do, how you need to do it.
Cosplayers exist on planet Earth.
You do what you need to do, how you need to do it. That's all I'm at.
Okay, you're just gonna drink your water and mind your business.
2022.
Okay,
yes.
So that's all right. That's that.
Mm-hmm.
And for toys, play with your old toys or build new ones.
Excuse you?
For toys.
Who's you addressing here?
So toys is a general thing. People have different toys. Like when you're, I hope you're not thinking in a dirty way.
I haven't said one
you haven't, yeah, because you're saying who you're addressing. But I'm talking about toys can be anything. They can be just like, some people, toys are their tools.
Mm-hmm.
So like, in a workshop, you might have a hammer and you said, man, there's like a new hammer that I want to buy. Don't buy the new hammer, use the old one. So that could be a toy.
Mm-hmm.
A toy can be like, let's see. It could be like a remote control car you have, because some adults play with that. Or a remote control plane, a drone. Instead of buying a new drone, build your own drone. That's a toy.
Lovely.
Then,
innovative.
Yeah, so I'm saying that, and toys can be anything. It could be just this new this makeup kit that you got that now you can put on your makeup in one shot. You don't have to take so much time to put on your makeup.
As you
don't buy the kit.
How much you know about makeup.
No, I'm saying because
stick to the space of what you.
No, I'm saying there, but there's probably a gadget.
You're referring to toys. So.
No, but there's a gadget that probably can put on makeup faster than you doing yourself, or it's like a template and it shows you where exactly you need to apply.
I wish I had a gadget in use right now.
And then what about if you, instead of getting a gadget to dry your fingernails, just blow on your fingernails?
Are you done?
No. Let's see, another gadget. Instead of getting something that massages you, just get a bat and hit yourself. I don't know. I'm just saying, make something that you can make something instead of buying
and
these gadgets. And
you can also run it to the wall as many times as you like.
No, I
ask again.
I gave an example, but don't do that necessarily. But I'm just. It's like you see where I'm going with it.
Innovative and thrifty is what you're suggesting.
Yeah, instead of getting these gadgets and gizmos, sometimes just use the ones you already have.
Yourself.
With your gadgets and gizmos. Yeah, you can do that. Instead of buying a new battery pack, use your old batteries.
Mm.
Instead of buying batteries that are just disposable, buy rechargeable. See, this is saving you money.
I get it, and I hear what you're saying, but there's also the other side of the coin, which is if majority of people started being more thrifty and spending less, I just wonder also the other impact that has on a massive scale, right? So say if 60% of the average American household who normally does go and spend anywhere between $1,000 to $5,000 for Christmas shopping, or $1,000 to $3,000, if they all don't do that, what is the implication for those companies? What is the implication that we put our economy in for 2023? So it's an interesting balance. It's an interesting balance. Like, we all can't do one thing and we all can't do nothing. So it's gonna really have to be like 53% of people keep doing what they do, or 63, whatever the percentage is.
Well, we know everybody won't do it.
The majority of people need to still support the economy because if we don't, then I think we
by
risk
putting themselves out to hawk, though. I mean,
not putting
crazy.
ourselves out to hawk. I do agree. Like maybe this Christmas, maybe folks, and if you typically spend $2,500 for Christmas, maybe this Christmas you spend $1,900, right? Like you conserve a little bit, but I don't know if we can go into the radical space of no one gets Christmas this year. We're just going to, watch the Peanuts. Call it a day. Like,
I mean, no, you can use
the stores. It would be
so see, that's a good example.
Yes.
Yeah, just use the streaming services you have instead of having 30 million of them. Just go for the ones you got. Don't subscribe to more of them. Or you're saying, no, you need to because then they're going to have an effect next year.
It's all compounded.
Because people will have things that they never use. Maybe stop paying for things you don't use anymore,
Correct.
Right?
Also, one could argue that if there are people who are going to go and do these self-audits and maybe they identify, hey, maybe I spend $5,000 every Christmas. Now maybe I'll spend $3,500 and then I'll donate $1,500 into your local charities that help those who need it to be able to get food and clothing for the folks who are more marginalized in our communities. So it's a balance, I think. I found.
Well, yeah, I was thinking. Remember, this is for the average person. I'm definitely not talking about
for the wealthy folks.
I'm not talking about the 1%ers or the 2%ers of people.
I would argue that unfortunately those folks might need to help carry folks a little bit
because
more.
Those people don't spend like the average person. The average person really spends. That's what's crazy.
Sadly, that folks don't realize that they think that the rich are really spending rich when it's just recently
they might only buy store
like
brand.
a TikTok where I think was it Timberland? I think there was some rapper who's like worth millions of dollars, and they were like, "Oh, he's shopping in Walmart," and it's like that's why he's a millionaire to keep what's going. What are we doing?
He knows to get the best price. He does. Yeah.
So there's an article on Time.com, and again, you'll find all our links on WokeNFree.com where it says they address how to deal with rising inflation. So. One recommendation is to continue investing. Outside of your emergency fund is one way to keep up with or even outpace inflation, says Samuel Dean, founder of Dean Wealth Management in a financial planning firm. When you see rising interest rates, a falling stock market, or ballooning inflation, it can cause you to second guess yourself, but a good diverse investment plan should be set up from the start to deal with the ups and the downs. You shouldn't let these things distract you. Dean says, and while you want to pay attention to what's going on, investing for the long term is key. I thought that was really helpful because a lot of times I've heard, even with like the '08 crash, that people made out like abandoned because all these people sold. Everyone was all upset.
Yeah, they got scared.
Some folks went in and got things pennies on the dollar and are now much, much richer because of that. So
hold tight.
hold is not is much better of an option than to sell and lose. Because,
hold them, don't fold them.
Yeah, where there's things that can be done. Now, the article did recommend ways to reduce your expenses. So looking at things you mentioned, like your reoccurring subscriptions, your phone, your internet, your car insurance, home insurance, those are all opportunities where if you can get maybe a better cut or reduce cost for any of those services, that might be really helpful during these times.
But you wouldn't want to cut your internet service. You want to get the fastest speed you can afford.
You want to get that you can afford. There you go. So that's one thing that you might want to consider as well. And when it comes to groceries, you can save money by being more efficient with what you purchase. American households throw away an average of $1,600 a year in produce, according to a report compiled by waste management consulting firm RTS. Meal planning is a simple way to get better at grocery shopping. Look at your calendar and plan for the nights you'll be home and the days or you or the kids will need to bring lunch to work or school. Find recipes that use the same ingredients, and then you're more likely to be able to use your food and not have as much waste in your household. Also, the article recommends using coupons, cashback credit cards, cashback portals to save. And then also you can find ways to save money through like used furniture, home goods, or clothing at a steep discount. The Facebook Marketplace is a good place to find items that are sold locally where you'll be able to save some money there. And then also other places like Tradesy, swap.com, and Poshmark. And then also the article recommend looking into savings bonds. That's where
interesting. With the interest rate rising,
a better option for folks. And then another option is to, and this is a big one, increase your income. Earning money outside of your job could be a really important option, and not necessarily like, going just to eBay or Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, but other things. You can look at your car and see if depending upon your lifestyle, does it make sense where you do those like wraparound ads on your car and you get paid per month to be able to advertise. You do have to drive a certain amount, and there's certain parameters that go with that. It doesn't work for everyone. There's that. There's also like parking opportunities. Can you rent out your garage or rent out your pool or other types of things? You have like an RV. Are you going to sell maybe gear, baby equipment that you don't have, not using anymore?
Wow.
That you could also look at your home, and do you have a spare room? Is Airbnb an option for you depending upon your household situation? And then also there are contractor or freelance opportunities that you might want to look up on Fiverr or Upwork, things like that. So different ways to think about it. But the moral of the story is that it's not a helpless or hopeless situation, but that we all have things that we can do on our part to be able to combat this and to kind of get more into a solution-oriented mindset as opposed to panic, oh no, end of days, right? Like that's not really helpful. Just kind of get really autonomous around what are the things that you need to do to make sure that you and your loved ones are okay through this challenging time for our economy.
And I also think the government might need to consider giving some tax benefits to corporations that don't increase their prices so much during inflationary times.
Yeah, incentivize stabilization.
Yeah, I think I think we might need to consider that, considering what just happened for 2020 and beyond. So I think that's something that we need to talk to the local reps about, getting something in place to help combat that.
There you go, Biden. Doing your work for you.
Yeah, and I like to say that these people...
Totally kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're kidding on that, but even for the Biden haters, he didn't get it wrong when he said that gas price increases because the corporations are making their profit. He didn't get it wrong there. Man, people trying to hate on him and said gas prices went up because of Biden. I'm sorry, you can hate on him all you want for all the other things, but that's one thing that is not right. So don't believe when people tell you that.
I think the moral of the story is, folks, do your homework, do your research, and
don't just say blame Biden. He's the cause of inflation. Because I've seen that too much.
And I have
our president calls inflation.
We like to blame and just one human being is the cause of everything.
What a powerful person.
Not very likely. Yeah.
Okay.
Do your homework.
Yeah. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? It's scenario time, guys. Scenario 1. Chien Xiong is a mid-sized business owner who's increased her company's profit year over year to please her investors. Since 2020, the price of her product has shot up each year by 10% to keep up with the company's past performance. She has started to get some nasty grants from longtime customers. Should she lower the price of her product to please these customers since the company has good margins?
Oh, wow. Oof, that's an interesting philosophical question. So, you have to do cost, like a balance you have to weigh the pros and cons here, in that if you continue to raise prices, what is the financial risk of how many customers, long-term loyal customers, you'll risk losing versus the new ones you'll gain just because of the nature of why people are going after a product? And then also considerations for giving folks grace, that they understand. Some companies have refused, organizations, even gas stations have refused to raise prices because they acknowledge that even if it means they're going to get less money, that they want to still support the people who've coming to their station or who are coming and supporting them. So to be honest, I would say that if she is deeply interested in making sure that she doesn't lose her longtime customers, she might have to pause or reduce how much extra margin she gets to kind of make a signal to her to her customer base that, like, hey, I get the times are tough, but I still want you to continue to support my business. I wouldn't have my business without all of your support. And it could be a nice gesture. It doesn't have to be long standing, but she could just kind of put a moratorium on, like, okay, we cap profits at X amount for this amount of time. And then hopefully, that gives people time to continue to feel good about supporting her business.
Yeah, I think in this situation, she should do what's morally responsible, and that is to actually lower the price. it may not be financially the best decision. Like, maybe it's better to lose some of those old customers and the new customers will make up for them. But I would say the morally, like, the thing that you can go to bed knowing that you did something right would be lowering the price, because then you're not hurting some of these customers. But I mean, I guess it depends on what the product is too, because what if the product is something it's not? Well, yeah, I mean, you might argue it doesn't matter if it's a necessity, but you'd say it's a want. It doesn't really matter. But I'm thinking if the product's not so, if the product isn't so necessary, it might not be a big deal for her to.
Well, it's like, you have to look, are people mostly going to be getting the product from discretionary income, or is this like something?
Yeah, like that. Like, is this an extra thing, or is it something that's worse where people hated this one guy who did it? If it's like a prescription drug, right? That kind of thing, where one guy, he shot the price up 3,000% and they hated him for that.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's.
And he just did it just in the name of profits, because he bought the company and he said, you know what, I can charge whatever I want, and he literally did that. And people were, I don't know how that story ended up, but yeah, that was definitely not cool to do that compared to something that's like a non-essential, like a toothbrush holder. I don't know, something where you can get an alternative for it.
Like
then
a
maybe
hair
it doesn't have to be.
It's like,
if there's an alternative for it, then it's not. But when it's actually the only thing on the market that does that, then that makes it kind of like, hey, you can be morally responsible here. If you can have a heart. Scenario 2. Francois is a lobbyist who believes increasing wages drives inflation up. So he talks with his local representatives about capping wages for jobs within his city. Do you think tactics like this curb inflation?
Curb. Okay. Interesting. I would argue probably not, because the thing about wages is that we have to remember that as inflation increases, people have got to pay for things out of their salary. And if we have organizations or leaders in our communities and industries purposely preventing people from making more money, then they are probably more so contributing to the issue with not even the increased inflation, but more so the impact of inflation on people's households. So I do not think that is a smart or ideal approach to dealing with things. I would argue that there are other ways to be able to look at inflation, and capping people's wages is not the sole cause for why inflation keeps going up. And if that is the rhetoric of communities or folks, I would encourage them to look at inflation through a different lens and maybe do some additional, identify other ways, because that just doesn't seem right to me. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think he's totally off base, because the wages aren't what's causing inflation. Because wages, if you look historically, they haven't even kept up with inflation. So why would capping it have any effect on it if they're not even, they're nowhere near what the inflation has been over the past decades. So this is a really dumb idea. And this is why people hate lobbyists, because they put in measures that most of the people don't even agree with. And it might be a vocal minority that agree with it. So lobbyists can be, they can be very interesting. Can be challenging, though. But this is definitely not right, and it's a despicable thing for him to try to implement. It's gonna definitely hurt people in the end and make their lives worse. So don't step in. I mean, he's probably. I'm just gonna take an assumption that he's probably someone who believes in the free market, but here he goes trying to control what what the market calls for. Because if the market wants to pay people more, let them do that. Absolutely. Why are you trying to interfere in that? Say that's
organizations that go out of their way to pay their people well are making a stance, that they want to support their employees, and that they also want their employees to be able to support their own lives. And people have to be able to make more money. I don't think. It's odd to me to be in a part of a society where, just to get by, I think most people have to have 2 to 3 jobs now. I think that says something about where we're going. And it's one thing to choose to want to work multiple jobs. It's quite another to say, if I don't have a second or third job, I can't exist in this country. And that's a lot of people are now saying that they need a minimum of a second job. More people
now than before.
More than ever. And that, to me, seems like there's a misstep here in our society.
Scenario 3. Ogunaike moved to the U.S. recently because her country was experiencing hyperinflation, which made raising a family almost impossible for even the highest earners. Would it make sense for her to move to another country since interest rates are rising and the cost of goods are rising as well.
Oh, that's interesting. So you come here for a better life, and then you realize it's not the actual dream that it's purported to be. So there's that.
That happened.
That part. So what do you do now? So again, I think hyperinflation is a very extreme situation that you shared that is typically not necessarily being experienced here in the United States, but other countries.
Yeah, it's not here.
So I would say I don't think we're there yet. I think that I'm not a future. I can't predict the future, but I don't think we're there yet, and I don't think that's happening in the next year or so. So I would say she should probably wait it out, being that she not just moved here, but if she's already started to put roots here and she enjoys the American society and culture, outside of rising inflation, I don't think that should kind of spook her off to move elsewhere, because sadly in this world, there's no land that's perfect. So yes, we have rising inflation, but one could think that there's also inflation or economic issues in other lands.
Yeah, that's what I was
thinking.
So
I would probably say your best bet would be to be here, and deal with also some of the other benefits that our country offers that you cannot find equally across the globe.
Yeah, that's what I was exactly thinking, is that you're going to try to go to someplace else, but what if it's worse there? So you decided on the U.S. for some reason. I think something made you think that this was the place to come to. You need to just stick with your guns and make it work here, because you go somewhere else, you might not know what you're getting yourself into. You might make a brash decision and say, this other country looks really great, and it's actually so much worse than even the country you were coming from. So I think you can make the U.S. work for you.
Absolutely. I mean, people have
just wait it
come
out.
from nothing. They've had pennies in their pocket, and they've been able to become millionaires and create a legacy in this country. So that is, the American dream is possible and feasible for so many. I think what's sad right now is just the amount of struggle and despair that is also experienced. While we have a tremendous amount of wealth, we also have a lot of hunger and pain and sorrow. So, hopefully we all listening, WokeNFree Nation, if you are in a position to be able to make a change in your workplace, in your communities, we all have a lift to make, right? This isn't just on our administration. This isn't just on our political leaders or stakeholders. This is for all of us to be innovative, for us to build companies and offer opportunities for folks to join and to, we all can play a role in being able to support each other. I think sometimes we always just look to say, government, get it right, or this person, get it right. And most things is not just them. The government cannot be blamed for everything.
It's the government's fault.
We've got to find a way to identify where we can make a difference in our own life. Because
you can't just say the government, they did it.
Yeah,
they got us.
And to me, it seems very petty and very childlike. It doesn't make sense. What are you doing to make your life better? We cannot just sit here and point fingers elsewhere. What are you doing? I urge you, WokeNFree Nation, to point the finger at yourself and understand what are you doing to make your life better, as opposed to trying to pinpoint how other people are trying to make your life worse.
When you make a fist, you're pointing for, or no, I said it wrong. Actually, that's not. So when you point your fingers, there's
one finger, there's four other ones pointing back at you, kind of thing. Yeah.
So just remember. But is it 4? I think it's 3.
Well, we have 5. Well, we're not going to count here because there's differently abled folks in the world. So we're just going to say.
But the phrase is, all right, this is just a phrase, though. It doesn't matter about appendages and stuff. It matters that it.
Just stop right there. Just stop yourself.
Okay.
Because
no, because it's just a phrase, though. It's not anything to be taken.
Words have power.
I know they do, but either way, the point that's being made is that you're probably the bigger part of the problem. It's not the person that you're calling out. That's what the statement is about. The point is we all
have a role to play in bettering our lives. Whether the government can play a role in that or other companies can, it is what it is. At the end of the day, what do you need and what do you want and what are you doing to make it happen? And, fight and claw and get to where you're going and stop pointing the blame elsewhere, because it's not going to help. You can sit here and blame our administration. Is your life better better at the end of the day? Probably not. So,
but you bring up a question. It doesn't have to do with the episode. But what is a clawback clause? Do you know what that is?
Clawback clause. Oh,
so that's... Do you know what that is? I forgot. I heard that. What does that mean?
I believe it's a situation where if X happens or X doesn't happen, then the people are agreeing to being able to claw back, meaning like they can retain rights or they can retain, like they can get like, so kind of like I'm giving you, 110% of something, but if you fail to do this, I take back 10% or, something that's what comes to mind from a legal perspective of what I've come to understand from a contract perspective.
All right.
I am not the knower of all things. So.
No, of course, but that gives everybody a good sense of what that means. Because you said clawback. I don't know why that made me think of that.
I said clawback?
I think you did, yeah. I forgot what you were referring to, though.
This has gone down a different yellow brick road. I don't know if folks are ready for this.
I got thrown off the path for a minute because you said clawback, and that just made me think of that.
Oh, okay.
That's why I asked that.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I just had to get that asked.
Well, thank God again, we're here at the time again. This is coming to the end of our 270th episode of Woke and Free.
Pretty good.
We were asking the question for this episode, what's causing current inflation? Now, Khalil, what do folks need to do?
Come back next week for the new Woke and Free Wednesday episode. Make sure you follow us on social media to follow along the conversation. And make sure you tune in next week for Woke and Free Wednesday to join the conversation at WokeNFree.com.
If you'd like to be a guest on our show, we're definitely considering stories and topics for 2023. Hit us up on our Contact Us page at WokeNFree.com. That's WokenFree.com. On social, you can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and LinkedIn at WokenFree. And then all sponsorship and collaboration queries, hit us up on our Contact Us page at WokenFree.com.
If you didn't already subscribe, please do share the episode and make sure you come back to join the conversation every Wednesday for Woke and Free Wednesdays. Remember, Woke and Free is more than a podcast, it is a way of life. Until next time.